In the year 2126, humanity had reached far beyond the Earth. Cities floated on Mars, mining stations circled Jupiter, and colonies dotted the moons of Saturn. The dream that once belonged only to science fiction had become real. For the first time in history, Earth was not alone, not in imagination, but in presence. The stars had become a second home for humans. But peace, as always, was fragile. People were busy building, exploring, trading, and living their lives without knowing that something was coming. Something that would test the strength and spirit of the entire human race. It started one quiet night over the Pacific Ocean. Satellites detected a strange signal coming from deep space. Far beyond the edge of the solar system, it wasn't a natural signal. It had structure, rhythm, and power. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth had focused on the source. The message was clear and simple. 6 words repeated endlessly in hundreds of languages. Kneel or be erased from existence. At first, people thought it was a hoax. The media called it an elaborate cyber attack or an alien prank. But when the signal continued for 3 full days, even when all communication satellites were shut down, fear started to grow. The signal was not coming from Earth. It was coming from somewhere out in the void, from a fleet of objects moving toward the solar system at incredible speed. By the 4th day, telescopes picked up massive shapes approaching the outer rim near Pluto. The objects were ships, each the size of a small city. There were hundreds of them, moving in perfect formation, reflecting no light. They seemed alive, breathing in the cold dark of space. The United Earth Council, a global government formed after decades of cooperation in space, went into emergency mode. They called for calm. They sent peace messages in all known languages, hoping to open a line of communication. But the response came quickly and brutally. The alien fleet transmitted another message. This time it was a voice, deep, metallic, and commanding. It echoed across every channel, every speaker, every screen. You have expanded without permission. You have trespassed into the dominion of the Arcanis Empire. Kneel before your betters or watch your world burn. Panic spread across every planet and colony. On Mars, people ran to the shelters. On Earth, chaos filled the streets. Religious groups claimed it was the end of days. Scientists argued on news channels saying surrender might be the only way to survive. But even as leaders debated what to do, somewhere in the dark, a secret force was already moving. Few people knew of the Black Armada. It was a hidden fleet created decades earlier, after the first encounter with a smaller alien probe that had destroyed a human outpost near Neptune. Back then, the world had realized that not all life in the galaxy would be friendly. The project to build the Armada was kept secret from the public, funded by a group of nations that feared another attack. Their idea was simple. If humanity ever faced an enemy too strong, they would have one last defense hidden in the shadows. The Black Armada was built in silence. Its ships were made with alien technology recovered from wreckage, combined with human innovation. They had cloaking systems that could hide even from advanced scanners, and weapons that had never been tested in open space. Their crews were the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers who had disappeared from official records, sworn to protect humanity even if no one ever knew their names. As the alien threat drew closer, an old man stood in a dark command room deep beneath the surface of the moon. His name was Admiral Elias Varon. He had seen war, he had seen loss, and he knew what was coming. When the transmission arrived, demanding Earth's surrender, he didn't wait for orders from the politicians. He simply whispered one sentence to his officers: activate Operation Eclipse. Across the system, silent ships began to wake. Hidden bases near Jupiter came to life. Cloaked vessels powered up their drives, unseen by any radar. The Black Armada was preparing to rise. Back on Earth, people were still trying to understand what was happening. The news screens showed images of the alien ship slowly approaching Neptune. They looked like black mountains floating in space, covered in glowing runes and surrounded by energy fields that pulsed like living skin. Every attempt to contact them was ignored. The only thing that came through was their final broadcast: humanity will kneel. Children cried. Families prayed. Soldiers stood by their weapons, waiting for the impossible. The president of the Earth Council addressed the world, saying, "We will not surrender. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we endured. We will endure again." But even his words trembled with fear. Far away, in the dark, Admiral Varon watched the broadcast in silence. He turned off the screen and looked at the holographic map of the solar system. Red markers showed the alien fleet's advance. They would reach Jupiter in less than 5 days. He knew that the Earth's main defenses, the orbital cannons, the lunar fleet, the Mars interceptors, would not be enough. They were built for human wars, not galactic conquest. The Black Armada was humanity's only hope. He looked around at his officers, men and women who had trained in secrecy for years, ready for a day that everyone else hoped would never come. "You all know what's at stake," Varen said quietly. "They think we'll kneel. They think we're weak. Let's show them what humans do when we're pushed to the edge." Orders were transmitted through encrypted channels. Across the system, engines roared in silence, invisible in the dark. Massive ships, black as the void itself, moved into position. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. The fleet formed near Jupiter's shadow, waiting for the command to strike. Meanwhile, on Earth, people watched the sky every night. Some claimed they could already see strange lights beyond the stars. Artists painted them. Poets wrote about them. Children asked their parents if the monsters would come for them. And through it all, the same fear haunted everyone. What if humanity truly was alone against an enemy they could never defeat? But there were still those who refused to give up hope. In the silence of deep space, the Black Armada stood ready. It was not a fleet built for glory or conquest. It was built for survival, for the right to exist, for the belief that no one had the right to make humanity bow. When the first alien scout ships entered Neptune's orbit, they detected nothing. The system seemed empty, quiet, defenseless. The Arcana's commanders laughed in their strange, cold language. They didn't know that in the shadow of Jupiter, thousands of kilometers away, invisible ships were watching them, locking targets, and waiting for one word from Admiral Varen. On the moon, inside the hidden command base, the Admiral stood before a massive screen showing the alien approach. His second-in-command whispered, "They're almost here." Varen took a deep breath. He thought of Earth, of the people who would never know his name, of the blue planet that had raised him, of the generations who had built and dreamed and reached for the stars. And then he gave the order that would change everything. "Send the message," he said. A signal was transmitted across every frequency, back to the alien fleet. Just 5 words, calm and human. "We do not kneel." The words echoed through the void, and for the first time the Arcanis stopped their advance. They had expected fear. Instead, they heard defiance, and in that silence between stars something shifted. Humanity, once small and scattered, had found its voice. The invaders did not know it yet, but the moment had come. The darkness that hid the Black Armada began to stir. Engines hummed. Shields powered up. Across the cold expanse of space, war was about to begin. The order to kneel had been given. Humanity had answered. Years before the alien fleet appeared, long before humanity even dreamed of facing a galactic empire, there were a few people who saw it coming. They were scientists, soldiers, and visionaries who believed that if humanity ever met another intelligent race, it wouldn't always end in peace. One of them was Admiral Elias Varen. He was younger then, a brilliant strategist during the first Mars conflict, a man who had seen how fragile peace could be. He understood something most people didn't. When humanity reached the stars, it would meet others who had already been there for thousands of years. And those ancient civilizations might not welcome a new species that expanded so quickly. That fear led to a secret project. The idea was born in the shadows of a quiet meeting on Luna Base after a small incident near Neptune. An alien probe had entered the solar system, scanned a mining station, and then destroyed it without warning. The explosion killed over 300 workers. The probe itself was later destroyed by nuclear interceptors, but its wreckage was unlike anything human scientists had ever seen. The metals were unknown, the energy cores beyond comprehension. That was the day humanity realized the universe was not empty and not friendly. The governments wanted to hide the truth from the public. They said it was a reactor malfunction, an accident, nothing more. But behind closed doors, the United Earth Council formed a secret alliance. Representatives from Earth, Mars, and the orbital colonies came together to plan something extraordinary. A hidden defense force that would protect humanity if the worst ever happened. It would operate outside of politics, outside of public view. It would be called the Black Armada. Construction began in the dark corners of the solar system. Huge shipyards were built near the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, hidden from scanners and civilian traffic. Engineers and scientists disappeared from official records and were quietly moved to those stations. They were told one thing: build the most powerful fleet the human race had ever imagined. The work took decades. The fleet grew in silence, black ships made with a mix of human technology and pieces of alien material recovered from the destroyed probe. These ships were unlike anything humanity had built before. Their hulls could absorb radar signals. Their engines used dark fusion, allowing them to move without leaving energy trails. The smallest ships could cloak themselves completely. The largest, called dread carriers, could launch hundreds of fighters and unleash weapons that could split a moon. Each ship was painted in matte black. No flags, no names, no colors. Only serial numbers burned faintly near the engines like ghosts of their origin. Admiral Varen became the leader of the Armada. To the world, he had retired years earlier, but in truth he commanded one of the most secretive military forces ever created. He trained men and women who were willing to disappear from history, people who had families they could never see again, who swore oaths to protect Earth even if no one ever knew their names. They were the forgotten soldiers of the stars. Varen taught them discipline and silence. "We are not heroes," he told them. "We are shadows, and when the light fails, we will be the last line standing." When the alien message arrived decades later, the command to kneel, the Armada had already been waiting. Every ship, every crew, every weapon was ready for the day the universe would come knocking. When the first signal reached Earth, Varen was in his command chamber aboard the flagship Erebus orbiting far beyond Jupiter. He had spent half his life waiting for this moment, and yet when it finally came, it still chilled his blood. The broadcast of the alien ultimatum echoed across his ship. The words "kneel or be erased" played through the speakers. Around him, officers looked at one another, some pale, some trembling. No one spoke until Varen finally said, "So it begins." He opened a secure channel to the United Earth Council. The screen flickered, showing the faces of the leaders sitting in a massive hall on Earth. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes. "Admiral Varen," one of them said, "we need time to negotiate. Maybe they don't mean harm. Varen cut him off. "They mean exactly what they said. They're coming to take control, and they won't stop until we kneel or die. You cannot bargain with those who see you as insects," the council argued. Some wanted peace, some wanted surrender. The military representatives were divided. Finally, the president of the council said quietly, "Do what you think is necessary, Admiral. But if you fail, humanity will pay the price." Varen ended the transmission and looked out the window at the endless darkness. "Failure," he whispered, "is not an option." He turned to his crew and gave the order that had been prepared for decades. "Activate Operation Eclipse." All across the solar system, hidden bases began to wake. Power grids that had been silent for years came alive. Cloaked shipyards released their vessels into the void. Artificial moons opened to reveal weapon platforms. From the dark side of Saturn, ships rose like shadows uncoiling. The Black Armada had been activated. Meanwhile, on Earth, no one knew what was happening. The public believed the military was still preparing defenses around the planet. They didn't know that a fleet of hundreds of invisible warships was already moving to intercept the enemy beyond Jupiter. Inside Erebus, the mood was tense but controlled. The crew moved with precision, their faces calm, their minds focused. They had been trained for this. As they powered up the engines, the massive ship vibrated softly, humming with energy. One of the young officers, Lieutenant Mara Kell, looked at the holographic projection of the incoming alien fleet. "Sir," she said, "they're bigger than anything we've ever faced." Varen nodded. "Yes, but they've never faced us either." The bridge fell silent. Outside, stars shimmered against the darkness, unaware that war was coming. The Admiral watched the long-range scanners showing the alien formation. They were approaching fast, their ships moving like a swarm of black blades cutting through space. As the Armada assembled, Varen sent encrypted transmissions to every captain in the fleet. "Our mission is clear. We do not fight for power. We fight for survival. We are the wall between Earth and extinction. If they want us to kneel, we'll make them bleed first." Each captain acknowledged the order. Across the fleet, men and women took their stations. Some whispered quiet prayers. Some stared at pictures of families they'd never see again. But none of them hesitated. Back on Earth, the alien fleet's images had reached the public. The massive ships had entered the outer solar system. The media called them the Giants. Their black hulls reflected no light, and their size dwarfed human vessels. People were terrified. Some called for surrender, others shouted for resistance. But no one truly understood what was happening behind the scenes, that humanity was no longer defenseless. By the time the alien vanguard reached Neptune's orbit, the Black Armada had already surrounded Jupiter's dark side, completely hidden. Their stealth systems were perfect. Even the alien sensors didn't detect them. The aliens advanced confidently, unaware that thousands of human eyes watched them through targeting scopes. On the bridge of the Erebus, Admiral Varen received new data from a drone near Neptune. It showed the alien fleet firing on the old mining stations, destroying them for no reason other than demonstration of power. The Admiral clenched his fist. "They're showing us what happens when we resist," he said coldly. "They think fear will break us." Lieutenant Kell looked at him. "Will it, sir?" He turned toward her. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with a quiet fire. "No, Lieutenant. It will unite us." Over the next few days, the fleet continued to prepare. Drones mapped alien formations. Tactical simulations ran endlessly. Every plan, every maneuver was analyzed and perfected. The Armada didn't plan to attack first. They were waiting for the right moment. The element of surprise would be humanity's only advantage. On the 5th day, the alien ships crossed Jupiter's orbit. They sent another message, this time directly to Earth's council. "Your time is over. Submit now or we erase your world." The message echoed across the solar system. And then, for the first time in human history, Earth did not reply with fear or negotiation. Instead, a signal came from deep space, from the hidden fleet. Admiral Varen's voice was calm and steady as he spoke across every human channel. "To all of humanity," he said, "this is Admiral Elias Varen of the Black Armada. We have not come to surrender. We have come to stand." People all over Earth, Mars, and the colonies heard his voice. They didn't even know who he was, but they felt something awaken inside them. Hope. For the first time in days, humanity was no longer afraid. The alien fleet stopped advancing. Their sensors picked up strange distortions near Jupiter, energy fluctuations they couldn't explain. And then, one by one, the cloaked ships of the Black Armada began to appear. Silent giants emerging from darkness. Hundreds of black warships aligned in perfect formation, their engines glowing like blue fire. Humanity had been ordered to kneel. But now, as the stars burned brighter with the awakening of the Armada, it was clear they would do anything but. The war for existence was about to begin, and humanity's answer would echo through the universe. The alien fleet entered the inner system like a storm. Their ships moved with perfect formation, black and silent, surrounded by rings of glowing energy that shimmered like fire. They didn't answer any more transmissions from Earth. They didn't send warnings this time. They were coming to finish what they had started. The command to kneel had already been given, and in their minds humanity's fate was sealed. But in the shadow of Jupiter, the Black Armada waited. Hidden by their cloaking systems, hundreds of human warships floated quietly, their engines off, their weapons charged. Inside those ships, every soldier knew that once they revealed themselves, there would be no turning back. They were outnumbered 10-1, and the enemy ships were larger, faster, and more advanced. But they also knew that this battle was not about numbers, it was about survival, pride, and the refusal to submit. Admiral Elias Varen stood on the bridge of the flagship Erebus, watching the holographic map as the alien fleet advanced. The tension inside the command room was so heavy that no one dared speak. Only the low hum of the ship filled the silence. Varen's eyes were cold, focused. He had fought wars before, but this was different. This time the enemy wasn't human. This time defeat meant extinction. The moment came when the alien ships reached the orbit of Jupiter. Their scanners passed over the gas giant, detecting nothing unusual. They didn't know that hundreds of human ships were hidden just behind the planet's magnetic field, invisible to their senses. The aliens sent small scout vessels ahead, black sharp-edged ships that glided like predators. One of them passed within a few hundred kilometers of the Erebus. The entire bridge held its breath. The scout ship's sensors swept across the area, then moved on. "It didn't see them." "Admiral," Lieutenant Marrakel whispered. "They're in range." Varen nodded slowly. His hand hovered over the control panel. Then, with a calm voice, he gave the order that would begin the first true interstellar war. "Deactivate cloak. Prepare to engage." Across the void, black ships shimmered into existence. One by one, the vessels of the Black Armada appeared like ghosts emerging from shadows. The aliens immediately noticed. Their formation shifted. Energy spikes flashed across their fleet. The first alien broadcast roared through open space filled with static and rage. "You were warned. You have chosen death." Baron stared at the screen. "So have you," he replied quietly. The first battle began with silence and then with light. The Erebus fired the opening shot, a beam of pure antimatter energy that tore through the first alien cruiser like paper. For a second, the ship glowed bright blue, and then it exploded in a silent flash that lit up the darkness. The war had begun. Within moments, the void became a storm of chaos. Hundreds of ships from both sides fired at once. Plasma beams, kinetic slugs, and energy torpedoes cut across space, leaving glowing trails. The Black Armada moved with precision and speed, using tactics the aliens didn't expect. They attacked in small groups, striking fast and then vanishing into the shadows again, only to reappear somewhere else. The alien fleet tried to adapt, but they were used to overwhelming their enemies with sheer force. They had never faced opponents who fought like hunters, using stealth and strategy. Human ships danced through the battlefield, dodging blasts that could tear a moon apart. Every hit they landed was earned with blood and precision. On the bridge of the Erebus, Baron gave orders with a calm that inspired his crew. "Squadron 3, flank their left wing. Don't engage their main line. Draw them toward the gas field." He turned to another officer. "Deploy the decoys. Make them think we're retreating." The alien ships followed the bait. They chased the smaller human vessels straight into Jupiter's magnetosphere, where massive storms of gas and lightning disrupted their sensors. The Black Armada turned and struck from behind, catching them off guard. Dozens of alien ships were destroyed in seconds, but victory came at a cost. Human ships were smaller and weaker. When the aliens fired, their weapons vaporized anything they hit. The Raven, one of the oldest ships in the fleet, took a direct blast. Its captain, Commander Holt, stayed at his post as fire consumed the bridge. His last words before the explosion were transmitted across the Armada: "For Earth." The explosion lit the battlefield. On the Erebus, the crew watched the Raven's signal disappear. Varen's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He simply ordered the next maneuver. There was no time to mourn. Every minute counted. As the battle raged, Earth watched from afar. News of the fight spread like wildfire through the colonies. People huddled around screens, watching faint images of explosions flickering in the sky, thousands of miles away. They didn't know who was winning. They only knew their defenders were fighting, refusing to surrender. Back in the battlefield, the aliens began to understand that this fight would not be easy. They sent a new formation forward, a cluster of massive ships, each the size of a small city. These were their command vessels, the pride of the Arcanis Empire. Their weapons could destroy continents, and their shields glowed like suns. When they appeared, the battlefield fell silent for a moment. Even the human crews felt a chill. "How do we fight that?" someone whispered. Baron looked at the image of the towering alien ships. "Together," he said. "We fight together." He gave the order to activate the hybrid weapons, experimental systems built using alien technology. The Erebus's hull opened, revealing massive rail cannons powered by dark fusion cores. The ship shook as the first round fired, a glowing spear of light that cut straight through one of the alien giants. The explosion that followed was so bright it turned night into day, even on the surface of Mars. The aliens answered with fury. Energy blasts struck the human fleet, tearing ships apart. The Vanguard was hit and split in two. The Helios lost its engines and drifted toward Jupiter's gravity well, vanishing into the gas storms below. Each time a ship fell, another took its place. The human pilots fought like they had nothing left to lose. In the chaos, Lieutenant Kell reported, "Sir, their right flank is breaking. They're regrouping around their flagship." Varen studied the data. "Good. That's where we hit them next." He ordered the fleet to form the Eclipse pattern, a maneuver designed for one purpose: to strike the enemy's command ship directly. The Armada split into 3 groups, attacking from different directions, using debris and destroyed ships as cover. The alien flagship stood in the center of the formation, surrounded by dozens of escorts. The first human wave hit like lightning. Fighters weaved between alien beams, dropping torpedoes that exploded in bursts of blue fire. The Erebus charged forward, leading the main assault. Every gun on its hull fired at once, bombarding the alien shield until it flickered and cracked. The alien flagship fired back. A massive energy beam struck the Erebus, shaking it violently. Sparks flew across the bridge. Alarms screamed. "Shields down to 30%. Someone shouted, "Hold steady!" Baron yelled, "We're not done yet." He ordered the fleet to concentrate all firepower on the flagship's weak point, the center core glowing on its lower hull. Hundreds of human weapons fired in unison. The alien flagship's shield collapsed, and then the final shot came from the Erebus. The beam pierced through the ship's heart, and the explosion that followed was like a supernova. When the light faded, the alien command ship was gone. The remaining alien vessels scattered, disoriented. Humanity had done the impossible. They had broken the enemy's command chain. Cheers erupted across the Black Armada. Crews shouted, cried, and hugged each other. For a brief moment it felt like victory. But Admiral Varen knew better. He watched the radar, seeing hundreds of alien reinforcements approaching from behind. The battle was far from over. He looked at his officers. "We've made them bleed," he said softly. "Now they'll come for vengeance." Outside, the wreckage of ships, both human and alien, floated in silence, glowing softly in the distant light of the sun. The war had just begun, but humanity had already proven something no one in the galaxy expected. They would not kneel. The aliens had arrived to conquer, but what they found instead was defiance. The Black Armada had turned fear into courage, weakness into strength, and darkness into a weapon. The first battle of Sol would be remembered forever, not as the day Earth fell, but as the day humanity stood tall against the impossible. In that cold, endless space as debris drifted and fires burned, the Erebus floated like a scarred beast refusing to die. Varen stared into the void where the alien flagship had been and whispered, "You wanted our surrender. This is our answer." The battle for Sol had reached its peak. The alien fleet, humiliated by the loss of their command ship, was now more dangerous than ever. They no longer approached cautiously. They attacked with fury, moving like a single living organism bent on crushing humanity. Their ships, enormous and bristling with weapons, moved toward the inner planets, intending to destroy everything in their path. Every move they made was calculated, ruthless, and designed to instill fear. But the Black Armada was ready. Humanity's hidden fleet, though smaller in number, had the advantage of surprise, intelligence, and determination. Admiral Elias Varen stood on the bridge of the Erebus, staring at the holographic map of the battlefield. Red dots marked alien ships, green dots human vessels, and yellow dots indicated damaged allies. The numbers were intimidating. Hundreds of alien ships still remained, larger and faster than anything the Armada had ever faced. But Varen's eyes were calm and his mind was focused. He had trained for this moment for decades. Every maneuver, every weapon, every ship was part of a plan he had perfected over years of secrecy and preparation. "Scanners report enemy concentration near Mars," Lieutenant Mara Kell said. Her voice was tense but steady. "They're massing for a direct assault on the colonies." Varen nodded. "Then we give them a welcome they'll never forget. Prepare the Scythe Protocol." The Scythe Protocol was a desperate plan, designed for situations where survival depended on sacrifice. It involved using gravity wells, experimental torpedoes, and the full power of the Armada's most advanced ships to strike the heart of the enemy fleet, even if it meant losing half of their own forces. It was a plan that only worked if executed perfectly. Failure meant annihilation. Orders were transmitted instantly to all captains. The fleet moved into formation, carefully aligning with Jupiter's orbit. Cloaked ships detached from the main group, ready to lure the aliens into traps. Smaller vessels positioned themselves near asteroid belts to use as cover. The largest warships, including the Erebus, readied their main weapons. Every ship hummed with energy, shields powered to maximum, engines waiting for the command to strike. Meanwhile, the alien fleet advanced toward Mars. Their energy weapons flared, carving trails of destruction in the void. Mining stations, colonies, and orbital defenses were destroyed in their path. The humans watching from Earth and Mars could only pray that the Armada would arrive in time. The aliens believed they were unstoppable, that humanity was cornered, and that the scream of surrender would soon echo across the solar system. The first strike of the Scythe Protocol began with a coordinated attack by the human fleet's cloaked units. Small squadrons darted out of hiding, striking the alien flanks with precise lethal attacks before vanishing back into the shadows. Alien ships fired blindly into the void, trying to track targets that weren't there. Energy shields flickered under concentrated fire, and explosions rippled across the enemy formations. The aliens were caught off guard, but they quickly adapted, shifting formations and concentrating fire on the nearest threats. Varen remained calm, issuing orders with the precision of a master strategist. Engage the left wing. Lure them toward the gas storms near Jupiter. Use the debris fields for cover. Concentrate fire on the exposed carriers. Each instruction was carried out instantly. Human pilots, trained in silence and secrecy for decades, executed maneuvers with skill and speed that seemed almost impossible. The aliens fell into the trap. Their ships pursued the smaller human vessels into the dense gas layers surrounding Jupiter. Magnetic storms and lightning discharges interfered with their targeting systems. Human ships darted between the turbulence, striking from unexpected angles. Several alien cruisers were destroyed when they collided with hidden mines placed in the asteroid belts. The battlefield became chaotic with debris explosions and energy flares filling the void. But the aliens were relentless. They redirected their forces, attempting to crush the human formations. Massive energy beams tore through human ships, vaporizing smaller vessels instantly. The Vanguard, a fast attack cruiser, was destroyed in a single hit and its crew perished with it. Every loss was deeply felt, but the Black Armada fought on. Retreat was never an option. Humanity's survival depended on every ship, every soldier, and every decision made in those critical moments. Admiral Varen studied the holographic map carefully. The alien command structure had been damaged, but reinforcements were approaching from the outer system. He had one chance to strike the heart of their remaining forces. Prepare the core detonators, he ordered. We hit their central fleet now or we lose the advantage. The core detonators were massive gravitational bombs, capable of generating a localized collapse in space. They were highly experimental and extremely dangerous even to the humans deploying them, but Varen had no choice. The enemy fleet had to be stopped, and he was willing to sacrifice whatever was necessary to protect Earth. The detonation plan was executed with meticulous precision. Human ships moved in perfect formation, luring the alien fleet into the gravity wells. The detonators were launched, traveling through space like silent harbingers of destruction. When they reached their targets, the bombs activated, ripping open gravity distortions that destabilized the enemy ship's formations. Massive vessels collided, shields collapsed, and energy cores overloaded, causing chain reactions of destruction across the alien fleet. The battlefield erupted in blinding flashes as ships disintegrated in huge bursts of energy. Human pilots maneuvered through the chaos, dodging debris and firing upon vulnerable targets. The aliens tried to regroup, but the surprise and precision of the human assault left them disoriented. Their formations were shattered, and their reinforcements arrived too late to save them. Even with the Scythe protocol's success, the cost was immense. Hundreds of human ships were destroyed or heavily damaged. Many of the pilots who survived the initial strikes were lost to secondary explosions or drifting into the void. On the Erebus, Admiral Varen watched the destruction with a heavy heart. He knew that each victory came with sacrifice. "We are the wall," he said quietly. "We fight so that others may live." The surviving human ships regrouped, using the chaos to retreat to safer positions behind Jupiter. Repairs were made where possible and shields were reinforced. The alien fleet, now scattered and damaged, began to pull back, though not without leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The inner colonies had suffered losses, but Earth itself remained intact, protected by the human fleet's courage and strategy. As the dust settled in the void, the Black Armada floated silently among the wreckage. Fires from destroyed alien ships cast a faint glow, and debris drifted slowly through the darkness. For a brief moment it was calm, a deceptive peace because Varen knew the enemy was not defeated entirely. They would return, stronger and angrier, once they repaired their forces. Humanity had won this battle, but the war for Sol was far from over. The crews of the Black Armada worked tirelessly through the night, repairing ships, treating the wounded, and recalibrating weapons. Every member knew that they had achieved something incredible, but the victory was bittersweet. They had lost comrades, and the scale of destruction was enormous. Yet through exhaustion and grief, a sense of pride filled them. They had faced an enemy that no one believed they could fight, and they had held their ground. Admiral Varen walked among his crews, offering quiet words of encouragement. "You have done what was thought impossible," he said. You have shown that humanity will not bow. Remember your families, your homes, and your people. Fight for them, because they are why we endure." Meanwhile, on Earth, people were hearing fragments of transmissions from the Black Armada. Their voices were barely audible across the vast distances, but every word carried hope. News channels broadcast images of destroyed alien vessels, showing that humanity had stood against the invaders and survived. Across cities and colonies, people cheered, cried, and prayed. For the first time, the universe seemed less frightening because they knew humanity had defenders they could never see. But even in the celebrations, Admiral Varen and his officers remained vigilant. They scanned the stars, tracking the remnants of the alien fleet, analyzing their movements and preparing for what was inevitably coming next. The Black Armada had proven its strength, but the enemy was far from defeated. Lessons had been learned, strategies tested, and sacrifices made. The battle for Sol was more than a fight. It was a statement. Humanity had answered the call for submission not with fear, but with defiance. The aliens had expected an easy conquest, but instead, they encountered planning, skill, and courage that few had thought possible. The first major conflict had ended, but it had set the stage for the next chapter, a war that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but the entire solar system. As the Black Armada drifted silently through the void, Admiral Varen looked at the distant light of Earth, shining like a fragile jewel. He knew that humanity had survived against impossible odds, but he also knew the price of the war ahead. With a quiet voice, he said to himself, "This is only the beginning. They will return. And when they do, we will be ready." The survivors of the Scythe Protocol continued to move through the darkness, repairing, reorganizing, and preparing. Humanity's resolve had been tested, and it had held. The battle for Sol was a warning to the galaxy. If they wanted Earth, they would have to fight. And the people of this planet were ready to answer that fight with everything they had. Through loss, fire, and chaos, one truth remained. The Black Armada had proven that humans would never kneel. And in that defiance, hope had been born, not just for survival, but for the legacy of humanity itself. The remnants of the alien fleet were scattered across the solar system, drifting like broken monuments of a failed invasion. The Black Armada had done what no one believed possible. They had defended humanity, shattered an enemy far stronger than themselves, and ensured that Earth and its colonies survived. Yet the victory was not complete. Many ships had been lost, and countless brave men and women had sacrificed their lives in the defense of humanity. The silence after the battle was both eerie and profound, a calm that reminded every survivor of the heavy price they had paid. On Earth, the news of the Black Armada's triumph spread like wildfire. People could barely comprehend the scale of what had occurred. The alien fleet that had once loomed like a dark cloud over the solar system had been repelled. Cities and colonies that had feared annihilation now erupted in celebration. Streets filled with cheering crowds, flags waved, and voices carried across the planet with the sound of relief and pride. Humanity had survived not through surrender or negotiation, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. The leaders of Earth, Mars, and the colonies gave speeches praising the unknown heroes of the Black Armada. They spoke of bravery, sacrifice, and defiance, though most citizens still did not know the names of the commanders or crews who had carried humanity through the darkest hours. Legends began to form immediately. People told stories of ships that appeared from nowhere, of soldiers who fought with unyielding skill, and of Admiral Elias Varen, whose calm and decisive leadership had turned the tide of war. Varen, however, did not stand on podiums or accept accolades. He remained aboard the Erebus, overseeing the remaining ships of the Black Armada. The battle had left the fleet severely damaged. Many vessels drifted in space, their engines offline, their hulls scarred and leaking atmosphere. The surviving crews worked tirelessly, repairing what they could and salvaging what they could not. Every repair was a small victory, every functioning ship a symbol of humanity's unbreakable will. The Admiral gathered his surviving officers for a briefing. "We've repelled them for now," he said quietly, "but they are still out there. Somewhere. They are regrouping, repairing, and planning their return. We must be ready." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Our fight is not over, but we have proven something today. Humanity does not kneel. We endure, we fight, we survive." The crews understood. They had seen the devastation, faced the terror of alien weapons, and survived unimaginable odds. They had lost friends and colleagues, yet they had stood against a force that had intended to wipe out their species. Every person aboard every surviving ship felt a mixture of grief, pride, and determination. They were tired, but their resolve had never been stronger. In the weeks following the battle, the Black Armada became both myth and reality. On Earth, stories of their deeds spread across every medium: news, radio, holographic broadcasts, and personal accounts from those who had witnessed the destruction. Children asked their parents if the heroes of the Armada would return to protect them again. Scientists and military strategists analyzed the battle endlessly, studying every maneuver, every tactic, every weapon. The world had learned a vital lesson. The universe was dangerous, but humanity could fight back, even against impossible odds. Meanwhile, the surviving alien forces had retreated beyond the solar system, their pride shattered and their command broken. They had not been defeated entirely, but their losses were devastating. Entire fleets had been obliterated by the Scythe Protocol, by human strategy, and by the bravery of soldiers who refused to surrender. Reports intercepted from their communications hinted at confusion, anger, and disbelief. They had expected humanity to bow, and instead they had been met with skill, courage, and an unshakable will to survive. As the Armada repaired and regrouped, Varen sent reconnaissance drones far into the outer system, mapping potential alien reinforcements and seeking any sign of the retreating forces. Every officer understood that the aliens would return, stronger and more prepared. The first battle had been won, but the war for humanity's future was far from over. They were defending not just Earth, but the right of every human to exist without fear, oppression, or subjugation. On Earth, people slowly returned to their lives, but the shadow of the war lingered. Cities that had prepared for destruction now celebrated survival. Families hugged one another more tightly. Children played with a renewed sense of freedom, and communities rebuilt with determination. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. They had learned that even in the face of unimaginable odds, courage and unity could turn the tide. Amid the celebrations, the Admiral maintained his vigilance. The surviving ships of the Black Armada patrolled the outer planets, monitoring for any alien movement. Supplies were replenished, weapons recalibrated, and damaged systems repaired. The crews trained continuously, preparing for the possibility that the aliens might return with vengeance. Every day brought a mixture of hope and caution. Humanity had won a crucial battle, but survival demanded constant readiness. The stories of the battle began to take on a legendary quality. Survivors recounted how cloaked ships had appeared from Jupiter's shadow, striking the alien fleet with precise, deadly attacks. They spoke of human ingenuity in the face of overwhelming power, of strategies that used terrain, debris, and gravity to outmaneuver a technologically superior enemy. And everywhere the name of Admiral Varen became synonymous with leadership, courage, and unwavering resolve. Decades later, fragments of the Black Armada continued to drift through the solar system. Some ships had been damaged beyond repair, left to float silently among the stars. Others remained in active service, hidden in secret bases, their crews training and patrolling. Over time, these ships became a symbol not just of humanity's military might, but of its determination to survive and protect the future of its species. The legacy of the Black Armada was more than military triumph. It was a lesson in resilience, courage, and defiance. Humanity had faced a force that had demanded submission and found within itself the strength to resist. Across generations, this story inspired new explorers, scientists, and soldiers. The legend reminded humanity that even in the face of superior power, intellect, bravery, and unity could change the course of history. In the distant reaches of space, some ships from the Black Armada never returned. Among the wreckage of moons and asteroids, explorers centuries later discovered the remains of the flagship Erebus, orbiting a dead, forgotten world. Its hull was scorched, its systems silent, but its message remained clear. Etched along the side in bold letters were the words, "We stood when others would kneel." These words became a rallying cry for all future generations, a symbol of resistance, courage, and humanity's unbreakable spirit. Earth and its colonies continued to grow, expand, and explore, always aware of the dangers that lay in the void. Yet even as new challenges arose, humanity carried with it the knowledge that it had survived the first great test of its place in the galaxy. The Black Armada, though largely unseen and unknown to most, had ensured that the planet, the people, and their future endured. And so, humanity's story was forever changed. The threat that once demanded submission had been met with defiance. The cost had been enormous, but the lesson was indelible. To survive in a vast and dangerous universe, humanity must fight, endure, and never bow. In every city, every colony, and every starship that carried humans into the void, the spirit of the Black Armada lived on. They were the unseen guardians, the shadows in the darkness, the proof that when the universe demanded obedience, humanity would answer with courage, defiance, and a will that could not be broken. The victory was not just a battle, it was a declaration. Humanity had faced the impossible and had survived. They had proven that even when faced with overwhelming odds, their spirit could not be extinguished. Every child born in the generations that followed carried the memory of that defiance, the story of a hidden fleet that had answered a command to kneel with fire, strategy, and an unyielding will. Centuries later, explorers traveling beyond the solar system would find remnants of the Black Armada, relics of a time when humanity faced annihilation and refused to yield. Ships broken and silent, floating in the darkness, were studied and revered. Historians and scientists pieced together the incredible events, ensuring that the story of the Armada would never be forgotten. It became more than history. It became legend, a tale of courage that would inspire humanity to face the stars with confidence, knowing that when challenged, they would rise. The Black Armada had vanished from sight, but its impact endured. Humanity continued to grow, colonize, and explore, always carrying the knowledge that defiance was possible, that courage could shape the future, and that the will of the human race was something no force in the universe could easily conquer. Earth had been threatened with annihilation, yet it endured. Humanity had been commanded to kneel, and instead it had risen. The legacy of the Black Armada lived on, a symbol of resilience, bravery, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to surrender. Through every challenge, every war, and every journey into the unknown, the message remained: humanity would not bow. And in the depths of space, where silence reigns and stars burn cold, the echoes of the Black Armada continued to speak to all who came after. We stood when others would kneel. Humanity had been tested. Humanity had survived, and humanity had proven that its spirit could never be broken. The Black Armada had answered when the universe demanded fear, and its answer became the heartbeat of a species determined to endure, to explore, and to thrive among the stars. The victory was hard-won, the cost heavy, but the result was undeniable. Humanity would endure, and no force could ever take that away.